Welcome to this virtual reality tour of Albert Kahn's architecture at the University of Michigan. We will begin with his very first building that he designed here, the engineering building now known as West Hall. West Hall was finished in 1904 and acts as a sort of gateway to the central campus diag, which Kahn would go on to have a major impact on. As for the architectural style, it's a concrete and steel structure faced with brick ornamentation. This would become very typical of Kahn's buildings at the university. The famous West Engineering Tunnel and the two copper turrets on the northwest side harken back to an old university style that Kahn was obviously trying to replicate on this, his first work at the University of Michigan. Welcome to Hill Auditorium. Built in 1913, it was originally designed to fit the entire 5,000-person graduating class in one space. And without modern sound technology, getting 5,000 people to hear the stage is no small task. Thus, the foremost acoustic technician at the time, Hugh Tallant, was consulted by Kahn on the project. The result is a space with near-perfect acoustics that is even rumored to have passed the pin drop test. What you're hearing right now is the majestic Fries Memorial Organ, which was donated in 1893 and moved to Hill Auditorium upon its construction. The building is designed in Kahn's usual style, featuring beautiful brick ornamentation and tall facade windows. Unique to Hill are the enormous engaged columns on the front facade, bringing a neoclassical air to the building. The interior space, to facilitate the acoustics, is essentially designed as a giant megaphone, resulting in a small stage, soaring ceilings, and a wide viewing angle. With Hill Auditorium, Kahn was able to utilize his personal style in new and interesting ways when given a very different set of programmatic requirements. These buildings may not look like they were designed by Albert Kahn, but they were. These are Helen Newberry House and Betsy Barber House to the left and right, respectively. Newberry House was built in 1913 and Barber House in 1920. Both are dormitory buildings predominantly used to house women over the years, continuing even to this day. They are designed very similarly except for the exterior finishes on the facades. Perhaps the only buildings Kahn ever designed using wood instead of steel structure, they are much more typical of residences of the time rather than university buildings. This is the Natural Sciences Building, a building for, well, the natural sciences. It was constructed in 1915 and built in Kahn's usual style of concrete and steel frames holding up large windows. With the elongated body and rectilinear organization, this is the clearest influence of Kahn's background making factories for the auto industry on his work at the university. I hope you've passed your first Blue Book exam because you're standing on the M right now. This is Hatcher Graduate Library. Finished construction in 1920, it was originally designed for a capacity of 1,000 people and 1,000,000 books. Hatcher was designed to replace the existing university library built in 1883. However, the original book stacks from the university library still remain at the library's core. A series of additions have been added since then, including in 1970 when Kahn's firm, Albert Kahn and Associates, designed the large South Stack Tower. The iconic facade, designed by Kahn himself, is very typical of Kahn's style, utilizing the steel and concrete frame construction to allow for enormous windows in a usually pretty classical building. Of course, this is covered by the brick ornamentation and copper moldings that are typical of Kahn's university buildings. This is the Clemens Library, built in 1923. In stark contrast with the Hatcher Graduate Library South Stacks behind it, Clemens Library is a much smaller rare books library and the only one not in the online university system. It's built in the Italian Renaissance style, based off of Vignola's Casino in Caprarola, Italy. Interestingly, on his deathbed, Kahn mentioned that he wanted to be remembered for his work on the Clemens Library over anything else that he had done in his life. Angell Hall was completed in 1924 and named after James Burrell Angell, the university president from 1871 to 1909. Angell was originally connected to University Hall, which has now been replaced by Mason and Haven Hall on the east side. However, the ancient cornerstone of University Hall still resides inside of Angell Hall in the basement floor. The west facade is by far the most iconic part of Angell Hall. Built in a very neoclassical style, it utilizes the Doric order of columns and also many other elements of Greek temples in the facade. Even the interior lobby is built in the old Greek style, with wood trusses running along the two axes on the inside, albeit at a much smaller scale than the facade. Angell Hall is really somewhat of a departure from Kahn's usual style, but fits into the educational style using the trope of neoclassicism to symbolize knowledge. This is the Randall Laboratory, built in 1924. It has housed aspects of the physics department ever since its construction. Inside the lab is a small 2-story brick building which is completely separated from the rest of the building and used as a sound lab. As usual, it is a concrete and steel structure covered with a brick facade and the same copper moldings that one might see on Hill Auditorium or Hatcher Graduate Library. This is Cozzens Hall, named after James Cozzens, a Michigan U.S. Senator who donated to the university in 1923 in order to build a dormitory for the fast-growing university nursing school. It was one of the first buildings to be built on what is now known as the Hill area of dormitories. Shaped like a large H, rooms were arranged along the outside walls with views and balconies looking over the large courtyard now known as Palmer Field. Even in his residential buildings, Kahn utilizes symmetrical classical styles in order to evoke a university air to the building. Right here, a viewer is caught between two Albert Kahn buildings built to resemble one another. To the southwest, your left, is the C.C. Little building, which used to be called the East Medical Building. Constructed in 1925, it was designed to be a laboratory building and was built so that all the rooms fit exactly between or around supporting piers and utilized space for windows to maximize the amount of light. On the other side of the street is the University Museums building, now known as the Natural Sciences Museum. Built in 1928, it was designed to look like and mirror C.C. Little on the other side of the street. However, this building had to be built on a much smaller construction budget, which you can see in the ornamentation on the facades being not quite as elaborate as it is on C.C. Little. However, Kahn still had enough to work with to create this beautiful rotunda off of the entry on the northwest side. Perhaps the least known of Kahn's buildings on campus, this is the Simpson Memorial Institute. Built in 1926, it was originally designed to be a small hospital ward to house 10 people and study rare diseases affecting one's blood. However, as these diseases have become less prevalent, it's been transformed into more of a research facility. It also departs from Kahn's usual style of architecture, as the windows are much smaller, the facade is not brick, and it's more reminiscent of an Italian Renaissance style than a classical style. The last and perhaps most iconic building Albert Kahn designed on the University of Michigan campus is the Burton Memorial Tower. Built in 1936, it is the tallest building on campus at 212 feet. The Burton Tower was almost never built at all, as plans were put aside during the Great Depression and were only resumed once Charles Baird donated a carillon of 53 bells to the university in 1935. What you're hearing right now is a beautiful demonstration of that carillon, which is the fourth heaviest instrument in the entire world. The tower, out of necessity of its shape, departs from Kahn's usual style. The usual red brick is replaced by gorgeous limestone, and spaces are consolidated in order to fit in a much smaller footprint to create the tower aspect. Thank you for joining us on this virtual tour of Albert Kahn's architecture at the University of Michigan. To start the video for the next person, just look down and back up to bring up the video playing menu. Focus the reticle on the pause button for a little while, and then on the restart video button just to the left. We hope you've enjoyed this tour of Albert Kahn's work in a way never seen before, and thanks for watching.